Ah yes, Ian Flynn. Love him, hate him, or indifferent. One can't deny that he's been destroying the comics as of late, reducing the sales from 21,000 to 13,000 at its lowest. He sent his fans out to attack his critics, and during the Archie run, he was pulling SJW stunts in the book and gatekeeping on his forums. But all of this sounds like someone who let the power of writing a comic get to his head. So it seems like he's been acting like this recently, right? Right? Well, not exactly. You see, even back in the fandom, Ian was a person that, from what people who worked with him or have encountered him online have said, was in those days he was not a very pleasant person, let's just say. And as I mentioned earlier, his Archie days were involved with him harassing people, asking why he removed much of the Echidna characters, and this was back in a time where people weren't all bashing all of his Echidna characters, like Julie Sue and Laura Sue. But the man I want to focus on is a man who has known Ian from the start. A man who knows Ian personally from his days in the fandom. A man who... Actually, I don't even know if it is a man. But the point I'm making is that he's a very important person, or she, has given us more information about Ian Flynn's fandom days and more information about Ian Flynn as a person deep down than what we've gotten from the forums. And this person is none other than the user that goes by the name of Chernagast. Now, as stated earlier, Chernagasts was a person who apparently worked with Ian when he was working on Other M, Ian's crappy Sonic fan comic, along with running a fan text game called Mobius Muck, which Ian frequented frequently at the time. Now, some of the things this person has said are interesting, to say the least. Now, according to Cherna, Ian was obsessed with Bean and Bark, and that apparently he roleplayed as Bean, which explains why Bean was featured frequently in Archie. This would also explain why Bean is featured on the first issue of Other M, on the cover. Other things said by Cherna include, but are not limited to, that Ian Flynn had always been a jackass. He had always acted like this. And that this is nothing new, which left him with a greasy feeling. And what else didn't help this was apparently the fact that Ian went on about how he wanted to fix the comic, to make the comic more like what he wanted. He wanted the comic to be less like SatAM and more like the games. Cherna also mentioned that if anyone asked Ian about Ian the Potto, or that Tangled is a Sally clone, or similar to Sally, and he said, "Watch how quickly you get banned." Now, Ian asked Cherna to come with him to work at Archie. However, Cherna turned this down. And considering what I've just said, I can understand why, because he doesn't sound like a person who is particularly pleasant to be around, even more so now than recently. And what else doesn't help to lower the tension of this is the fact that Ian wanted Cherna to draw a rapist dictator Knuckles. And that was the reason why Cherna didn't go with him to Archie. He was glad not to have, even in retrospect. So with the information I've just given you, you're probably thinking, oh, well, he's just a Ken Penders fanboy. Nope. Oh, well, he just hates Ian Flynn. Not exactly. And you're probably also thinking, well, this guy can't be telling the truth. Well, he is. This is Chernagast's Anime City account, dated March 22nd, 2004. You'll notice all these drawings. And you'll also probably notice soon is that the penciling and the coloring is very similar to that of Other M. If you don't believe me, well, here you go. Take that. Copy. And paste. I'll just keep that right there. And There we are, perfect. That's one more joke stolen from the AVGN. So, if you're looking at this, then you'll notice the art and pencils are exactly the same on both pictures. Which means that yes, Chernagast is telling the truth. However, no artists are listed, not even Chernagast, although I think this is most likely just Ian's ego, and possibly a combination of the fact that Chernagast might not have wanted Ian to reveal his identity, because he was probably ashamed to have been associated with someone who wanted to create a rapist Knuckles. I can't get over that. That was so stupid. So if Ian's unwarranted hostility towards the fans is new to you, well, it just isn't. It simply became more public as time progressed and as he stopped doing it on his forums. And the rapist Knuckle thing means that Ian is one sick motherfucker.
Truly, truly, I say unto you, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you.
Although crap like that does explain why characters acted very weird or acted way out of character in his run, because that's something he had a habit of doing in his fandom days, and it's just something that he continued to do to try and sell copies of the book, even if it didn't work exactly in his favor, especially. So that's basically a set of behaviors that persisted throughout the comics. We can see traces of this with Sally X Nicole and his attitude towards the fan backlash. We see this with IDW and his 12-tree rant, telling and thanking people for acting like his thought police. And we see it with the incessant butchering of old characters, beloved or not. And what about Cherna himself? Well, Cherna is like the anti-Ian Flynn. He's a good writer. His fanfiction actually made a whole lot of sense. It was actually a lot of fun to read, compared to Ian Flynn's, which is just... I'm gonna let you read it yourself, and I'm gonna link both of them into the description below. But you could probably figure out what the story I'm gonna link you to is if you've listened to anything I've said before, or watched any of my previous videos, because you're in for quite the treat. Not only that, but he is a much better artist than Ian. You look at Ian's art, and you get stuff like this, whereas at Cherna, you get stuff like this, and it's actually really good, and you know, I can actually see why Ian hired him to draw and pencil for Other M, because he's a very, very good artist. It's just a shame that we got the guy who drew the most autistic thing I think I've ever seen anywhere. I'm serious, if I keep looking at this thing, I'm probably gonna get eye cancer or something. Or contract AIDS, one of the two. I can't look at this for more than a few seconds because, dear God, why? Why couldn't we have gotten this, but we got this instead? Great. Not only that, but Cherna also is a very pleasant person. He is much friendlier. He was friendly to those who disagreed with him. He didn't harass them. He didn't send his fanbase after them. And what does Ian Flynn do? He harasses people, sends his fanbase after them, and refuses to show any respect to anyone else on the other side of the coin. And he's also not the idiot responsible for that stupid-ass idea of a rapist Knuckles. I'm sorry if I'm harping on that. Now, combine all these factors together, and the fact they've been harping on about that dumbass rapist Knuckles crap. I think if Cherna had actually joined Ian Flynn and actually went over to Archie with him, he would have annihilated Ian Flynn. And if you compare the quality of his fan art with Ian's, there is no denying that Chernagasts is a superior writer, a superior artist, and is a superior person in general.